Welcome to the Bad Already podcast. My name is Aaron McManus, and I'm here with my dad, Erwin McManus.
It's so good to be here with you today.
It's so good to be here.
I decided today I'm going to try to match your energy.
Please don't do that.
Because I watch a podcast sometimes and I realize how much energy you bring, and I'm like a sleepy river.
You're like a lazy river. You got your inner tube, you got your snacks, and you're just kicking back, letting you go in circles.
All right, so I don't want to be lazy river. I want to be white water. Rapids.
Okay. I think I'm just like a waterfall.
Fire hydrant.
Always going off the edge.
I think you're a fire hydrant.
Fire hydrant.
You're born in the city.
Okay. So we have some things to talk about. I mean, where do you want to go into first? Because I could go personal. We could go political. We could go faith. Talk about God. Which one do you want to go to first?
Okay, I'm going to do a global survey. Brooke, where should we start?
Faith. I'm going to start with personal. Because I have some things I want to get off my chest.
All right.
So, in the last month, I feel like I've been going through it. I get hit in my car's in the shop for 6 weeks. Then I borrow my mom's car. Like any good son.
You park it in a really
I parked it
quiet
so
street.
far away from my friend's house on a quiet street, and some kid nails only my car, pops the wheel off the axle, car's totaled. I think it's totaled.
But you heard the car accident without even realizing, a block away.
I was with Eric in his back patio, and we hear this. Can I hit the table? You said I couldn't hit,
All right, go ahead.
Hit the table. This loud, like, so much louder than that. Eric goes,
By the way, when he says Eric, he means Eric Roy, who's one of our
good friends.
Family.
And he goes, wouldn't that be funny if like that was your car? And I said, yes, except for I parked in the neighborhood, not he lives kind of on a major street corner. I parked in the neighborhood. I went out of my way. And I go when I'm leaving 30 minutes later. This is around midnight. I walk around the corner and all I see is the car, like our car, your car, off the curb, onto the curb, wheel popped off, axle dropped, the whole front, like no damage except for like the wheel, like rim area.
It looked like the axle was going in one direction and the car was going in the other direction.
The neighbors thought I was a drunk driver.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there, I call Eric and I'm like, no one's going to believe I wasn't in this car.
So you go over there and then some guy who lives there accused you of being the guy who hit the other car.
Yeah.
Because there was a car in front of you that also got hit.
Yeah, so it hits. So like car is, can we play this video on here? Car is going straight 20 miles an hour, not even that fast. My car's parked on the curb. Boom. Just all of a sudden. It was three young guys, like 20,
and
22.
And then he hits the car in front of him, and then he hits and runs.
And then he hits mine and then slides into the car in front of me, which is only like a driveway away, and just hits the gas and goes. So me and Eric are a little kind of type A crazy, right? Mm-hmm. So, we're like in shorts and hoodies. This is July 3rd. There's fireworks popping. Like we're a few miles away from you. So I call you. I'm like, hey, I have terrible news. Everyone's safe. I'm fine. But your car has been like probably totaled. And I was too afraid to go to the car because there's like people like looking like around it. And I was like, they're going to think I'm a drunk driver. And I've just been with Eric and his daughter for the last like 3 hours hanging out. So I call Eric, please come here. I'm gonna need you to like help me in this situation. And we go up, we talk to everyone. There was like a really awesome older Korean guy with like a young daughter, and like they came out and talked to us. And he's like, hey, I think I might have security footage. And then there was also like the crazy neighbor who was like a younger guy and was just, I don't know if he was not normal. Cause he's like, he brought out this LED light and he's like, look inside my car. And I was like, hey bro, what are you doing in my car? And he's like, hey bro, why'd your car on my lawn? And I was like, hey man, you're about $120 and you're 5'5", and my 6'4" Korean friend's about to come out here. And also, I wasn't in the car.
You're the victim.
I'm the victim.
And it wasn't even on his yard. It was on
it was
public property.
His house was like away. So our Korean friend brings out the security footage, and it's like very clear. Obviously, I'm not in the car. Some other person hit me. We see that it's like a black sedan, lower to the ground, looks newer.
But this time you call me.
I've called you were my first call.
Yeah, okay.
You are my first call always. and then I call Eric to come out. So me and Eric trying to figure this out. The police come. We talk to all the neighbors, give everybody's numbers. The police finally show up. LAPD by himself. I felt kind of bad. I'm like, you're by himself. Really, really awesome young guy. And he goes, sorry, bro. Like, I don't like. There's nothing, nothing we can do. But if for some reason you see this car, or you think you see this car, like, let us know. Call us. So everyone's gone inside. Police leave, and me and Eric decide to go on a little mission. I said, I don't know how this car would get away, like how hard it hit us. So we do a little lap around the block. Crazy thing is, Eric lives on one side of the street, my other friend lives on the other side. So we're kind of texting everybody, driving around the block, and I see this blacked out Mercedes GLC 300, and I'm like, why is that parked on the street in this neighborhood? It's the truth, kind of in the, we're in the suburbs.
Yeah, but you also follow the tire tracks all.
Yeah. So long story short, we see the car. We're like, there's people in that car, and it's blacked out, and they're on the back seat. Like, this is weird. So Eric goes back, sees the tire tracks, and it leads to where this black GOC is parked.
Oh, so you had seen the car before you actually realized there were tire tracks?
Yes, and I was like, bro, I think that could be it. And so when Eric,
you guys are Sherlock and Watson.
Sherlock Holmes. I'll let Eric be Sherlock in this story. So a tow truck shows up, and by this time, Eric had dropped me off. I live not far from him, and I call you, and we're like, we're going back. So you pick me up. We go back. He found the tire marks. We follow it to the GOC. He gets out of his car, sees that the whole front end of it is just messed up. The tires popped, and he's like, and there's 3 dudes in the back. So we call the cops. They're like, what do you want us to do? And we're like, we want you to do cop stuff with the car. And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, what do you mean? What do I mean?
I did think it was odd that the police officer kept coming and asking us
for advice
what we wanted him to do. I thought, you're like the person in authority. You have the badge and the gun.
And the gun.
And the uniform. And you should be telling us what you're going to do next.
Yes. So he says, what would you like me to ask him? And I said, this is what I'd like you to ask him. I'd like you to tell him this. We have him on surveillance, on a camera. Please give us your insurance, and I won't press charges. All right, great. Be right back. Goes, does it. Then all of a sudden, things escalate. This kid's in cuffs because they realize it's this guy. He admitted to it.
But the first guy got out of the car, got a skateboard, stood next to the cops while the light was going to change, and then skateboarded off, and the cops didn't even stop him.
The cop goes, who else is in there? And he goes, 2 other guys, and just skates off. He waited at the light and skated off.
You could tell he was nervous, wondering if the cops were going to stop him, but he just kept going. I don't really understand how this works.
So I have it on film, and at this point, it's just like comical. So, and I did mean it. So the cop, I think at this point it became really suspect. Like, are they drinking? Are they on drugs? Whatever. And I said, hey, it's only me. If they give me insurance and they have insurance, no charges. I will not press charges. Like, let insurance deal with it. I don't want to put anyone to jail, especially like a young guy from LA. That's not my thing. He wasn't drinking. He was super compliant.
But then why did he crash into 2 cars?
If you see the video, it's crazy. It's like, maybe they were just like messing around.
You know what's odd too? I think he was 23.
Yeah.
His license was dated your birthday.
My birthday.
July 9th.
And this is when we should have known things were not going to go well.
And it was right before your birthday.
Right before my birthday. And I had like... So then, 4th of July happens, right? And the week of 4th of July was complicated because I was in a complicated thing, and I released I'm trying to handle this carefully. We did a podcast about me not wanting to date, and someone I love dearly said that really hurt them. And
because they
cared about me.
And they thought you guys might be dating.
And it's not that we weren't dating, but I was like, I'm not ready to be in a relationship. And with that, it was very friendly. We were friendly.
What you meant is you're not ready to be so serious to be married right now.
Right. And then they were really honest with me and open with me, and we've been friends for 5 years. So I'm trying to say this with respect. And so I learned a big lesson on do not wait, And so that was devastating. So I was dealing with that, with all of this, with my birthday coming up, and someone who I would want to spend that time with is gone. And
so can I give a 30-second dating advice to every guy listening?
Well, hold on, because I'm gonna pick your brain. Is that okay?
Okay.
So then we did that, and then we did the podcast, and then that all unravels, and then I do a podcast on get to work, and then I unravel, and then the next week I'm like, I don't know how much longer I can do this at the level in which I'm doing this. I feel exhausted. I feel not burned out, because I don't really blame burnout, but like just exhausted, right? And so like, if we could maybe in the first third of this podcast, because I've been talking a lot, how do you not miss the thing right in front of you? How did I miss it?
Yeah, I would say that this is my advice to most single guys. Be careful that you don't miss the better thing when you keep looking for the better thing, when the better thing is right in front of you.
Yeah. It was really,
Because I think that there is this one, you have to realize, like in ancient times, you didn't have an unlimited number of dating possibilities. And so if you lived in a small village in the countryside of England or Germany, or if you lived in a tribal village in Africa or wherever.
You're really going there.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah. You had a limited number of people from which your spouse would come from.
Right.
But now you guys have Instagram, and
dating apps.
And you're aware
Facebook,
of so
TikTok.
many people out there. And it can create a perception that a girl in Sweden is as real a possibility as a girl in Silver Lake. Or like,
That's frustrating because she's Swedish, so that's also frustrating.
I just picked
Yeah, it's okay. She doesn't live in Sweden. She's down the street from me. But.
and I just picked the spot. and I think a lot of guys miss what's right in front of them because they keep thinking, but what about like this person, or tomorrow somebody else is going to come around, and that's where you have to be careful to not fall in love with the idea of people, but to actually see the people around you and to love them for things that actually matter.
Yeah.
Like, who do you laugh with? Who do you enjoy life with? Who do you can you talk to endlessly with? And dating shouldn't be about how that person makes you look in front of other people. Dating really needs to be about the value of that person in your life, and that you bring it to their life when you're together.
I think I realized a couple of things, right? Like, I thank you so much for being so open and kind to me about this, because I really, I felt like she hadn't told me where she was at. And I was really wrong, because everything was there, like the signs were there.
But straight up, everybody who knew you, kept saying,
"What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Like, she's the right person you should be with. And so, and I think, like, I'm still...
Or a right person to be with.
Right.
Yeah.
And look, like, the reason I'm talking about it now is because we just got off the phone. Like, we sat down a few weeks later, and we talked it all out, and we're like, look, like, there's 5 years of friendship on the line. Like, we may not be we don't need to talk every day right now. She needs space, I need space. But we're not going to not be kind to each other. So, like, I really was grateful for, like, a healing conversation afterwards. But, even when I was faced with this choice of, I wasn't faced with a choice. I was faced with the realization that I was too late. Mm-hmm. And so with that, I think I had wrapped my identity also in, like, being public. I'm not a public figure, but I'm more public of a figure than most. And I think I'd wrapped my identity in being the single guy. And being single, and I think it was an unhealthy mentality of, like, I didn't want to be something someone could obtain, and I think it was unhealthy. It was an unhealthy mentality. Going, there's a beauty in being someone else's and someone else's being yours, but I really struggle sometimes with this, like, intimacy thing.
Yeah, I'm going to sound really old, but marriage is not antiquated or irrelevant. It's hard, but having someone to share your life with is a really amazing and beautiful thing. And dating is fun, but you have to come to a place in your life where the thrill of the hunt is replaced with the depth of intimacy and knowing someone.
I don't know that I was like trying to hunt. I think it was more like I was dodging.
No, but I see this in a lot of people. I think I see it in you too.
No, just speak openly.
Yeah. When someone likes you, you think there must be something wrong with them because they like you.
And maybe, and I think there was like a huge identity issue, because I was like, I mean, I told the person, I was like, look, I didn't honestly believe anyone could love me the way you loved me. Like, I just didn't understand how someone could blindly like love me like that.
Yeah, and I think that there are a lot of people who are drawn to people who don't like them because it's actually an identity issue. You don't believe that you are worthy of love, so you actually choose people who don't actually love you, but use you. And then when someone, I see this in girls all the time too. So it's like they are not interested in guys who are interested in them. They're only interested in the guys who aren't interested in them or are not good to them. And because the moment that person likes you, you think there's something wrong with them because it's your low self-esteem that actually becomes reflected on their choice of you.
Yeah, and so I think like, I'm sure I'm gonna get myself in trouble a little bit with this, but I also think that like processing out loud helps me. Also, if anyone can learn from my stupidity, God bless them. Go well, my young friend. Godspeed. But I really do. We were talking about it today. Like, there's always more possibilities. There's always happiness coming. Mm-hmm. I said, I don't know how much I have left in me. Mm-hmm. And you were like, you have so much left in you. So, because it also, I think, applies to work. I took for granted something, and whether she was it or not, she was someone who deserved more than what I was giving her, right? Mm-hmm. And so when now I have the choice to choose who I'm going to be now, mm-hmm. right? Am I going to spiral and become destructive, self-destructive? Because the reality is that like I am an impulsive roller coaster sometimes, a lot of times, And in the last couple of weeks, even with her, it was like when you're losing something and it feels like sand or water, you're trying to like hold water in your hands and there's nothing, it's just gonna fall through. Like there's a panic, there's like an anxiety, there's a heaviness, and so.
Right. But it's called gambler's remorse, and it's a sociological and psychological phenomenon that when people end a relationship, they want that person more than they did when they had the relationship. So you have to realize that some of it is you're processing a survival instinct inside of yourself. And that really, if you guys were good friends for so many years, and you were, that's probably what was a good space for you. And right now you're processing the loss of possibility, not the loss of reality.
Yeah.
And that's harder sometimes. Like when you
Look, you say.
Yeah, I mean the loss of possibility is, I think, is incredibly painful because it's like loss of a dream. And so you have to kind of, I think it's really important to end relationships well. But I also think it's important to recognize that there's an end to the relationship. And because the reason relationships go bad at the end is because both parties don't know how to bring them to closure well. Because one of them doesn't want to accept closure. Yeah. Or they both don't to some degree because they both go through like gambler's remorse.
Yeah. And I'm processing so much. And I think it's, the reason why I talk about it, and some people may think it's weird that I talk about personal life, is that I just genuinely do think there's things that I'm still learning. And so I want people to learn maybe through me sometimes, I would say this, one thing that I don't feel like I give myself is adequate amount of rest to recharge. How does one, when feeling exhausted, feeling burnt out, feeling whether even just, like I was telling you, I'm like talking to our guys all over Mosaic, just our leaders. It's like I'm dealing now with the fact that I lost Mosaic Venice. Like my friends who have met me now don't know that Mosaic Venice happened. Mm-hmm. They're like, what do you mean you were like over a thing? I mean, no, there was like 600 people that would come to, maybe it's not huge, but like it's big, come to our campus, and like I was kind of the guy, or one of the guys. And for me, like I think I'm able to make really tough I told you, I asked you this. I'm going somewhere, I promise. I become addicted to like the crisis. So when COVID happened, I knew that it was over. Like for a season, I knew Venice wasn't going to be a thing for a while. Of course, like they're our church, but like we met in a school.
Yeah, no, I met in fact, a family came last Sunday to Mosaic here in Hollywood.
And this is what made me think about it.
And that was so interesting because I think I said, oh, I didn't realize this was your campus. They go, it's not.
No, the little kid said this.
Yeah, well, no, the parents said it too.
The parents.
Said, it's not. Venice is our campus. We belong to Mosaic Venice. And we invited the people who are part of our campus to come today too. Yeah. And I realized a year and a half later, their identity is still Mosaic Venice.
No, and it's not that mine wasn't. But I think in times of crisis, I'm able to actually make better decisions than in times of like calm.
See, and I would say that's not true.
How? Because I think I made the shift really quickly. Because I remember I sat down with Carlos. Was like, look,
no, you do well when there's crisis, but the problem is that because of that, you have a psychological need to create conflict and crisis so that you can actually do well.
Right.
And so you have to be careful because you do have a personality structure that actually thrives in that chaos.
Yeah.
But what happens a lot of times is people who have the kind of personality who thrive in chaos, they end up creating chaos so that they can feel alive. And so it's a catch-22.
But I do feel like I'm having like an identity crisis lately with the fact that things are all going back to being good. Like I sat down with you and I, we can cut this out later if we don't want it, but like, I was like, hey, I feel like Mosaic's amazing. I feel like I'm good. Like there's not a purpose for me now. Like, let me move on to the next thing, or let me build the next project, or like, let me, and I don't know, I don't have a purpose when there's not conflict. No, I hate it. I don't like it, but it's, I told you, I was like, is it that I like fixing things and I like building things, or is it that I need to feel like I'm the one saving things?
The healthy thing is you like fixing things. The unhealthy thing is you like breaking things so that you can feel like you can fix it.
Wait, but what? No, I'm saying, what did I break?
Relationships.
Yeah, but I'm talking about work now.
It transcends. It goes across the board. So you have to think through even with but even like with work. The moment things are going well, you start questioning whether you should even be doing it anymore.
Yeah.
And so
I don't want the calm.
Because you want to break it, you got to find something that's broken that draws your attention. Yeah. And then you feel the stress of the broken thing, and it drives you crazy.
Do you think it comes from my need to fix things, or from my lack of self-worth because I don't think I deserve anything that's good?
I think it's both. I do. I think that there are a lot of people listening right now who have real struggles with their self-worth. And when their life starts going well, they become self-destructive. And I can tell you, I had to overcome that in my own life too. And I have to pay attention to that narrative. And frankly, it's one of the reasons I like being around people who've accomplished a lot more than me, because it gives me a better ratio of perspective. And because if I'm around people who maybe haven't accomplished as much or haven't been as successful or maybe haven't created as much as I have, I feel overwhelmingly guilty that I have more than I should have or deserve, and I become self-destructive. But when I put myself around people who are much more successful and much more actualized, or even just much more creative, I go, oh wow, I have so much more I could accomplish. And so there is a way of creating a healthy psychological posture, even when you don't feel like you deserve what you actually do. And so you actually do deserve to be loved. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be fulfilled. You deserve to have meaningful relationships in your life. And that's what I would say to everyone who's listening is sometimes your worst enemy is yourself. Mm-hmm. And when things are going well, you make choices to make sure things don't go well. And you need to step back and evaluate that and go, wait a minute. Am I creating the crises, or am I stepping into the crises.
Yeah.
Like you had nothing to do with the fact that your car got back-ended, and then a few weeks later the other car gets trashed and sideswiped, and you had nothing to do with that, but you have everything to do with how you respond to that, and how you let it affect your emotional well-being. Yeah. And so one person go, my life is falling apart, and I give up. Another person go, wow, another challenge to overcome.
I mean, I was a little bit of, I don't think I broke down. I think I broke down before we started filming this podcast, being like, this was a really hard month and a half for me.
Yeah.
But I do think it's okay to say, because even then, I don't know, I put an offer on a house because you were helping me, and I knew
how many houses have you put offers on?
I've probably seen over 150 houses, and I've probably put offers on 12 houses, maybe 10, 12.
Yeah.
Last couple months. And because I get, at the point now in LA, it's rent is absolutely insane. It's cheaper to find a house and then fill it with roommates. And, to you know what I mean? To actually be an owner versus a renter.
I just saw an article that said a terrible time to buy in LA and even worse time to rent.
Yeah. And so not even those are just offers to buy. How many times I haven't been able to rent a place because
you've been rejected by a lot of houses.
By renters, sellers. I mean,
That's true. You can't even find a place to rent.
And so I'm at this place now where I'm okay, I'm not trying to be down on me, but I'm going how I start to ask these questions do I even belong here if there's no place for me? Mm-hmm. Do I need to just go and is my function in life to go and fix things that maybe are broken or need help? Am I just reinforcement to something else? We're having this conversation, Mariah's really structured and really built for she came into the podcast and she's she had plans. She had notes. I come to this podcast and I have emotions. and I am logical to some degree, but it's filled with a lot of intensity, a lot of emotion. And so there is I have a forward motion, but I don't know if I necessarily have always a plan on how I'm going to get there. I told you I scramble. It's we just figure it out. How do you find not just your purpose, but how do you remember your purpose when it feels like all is lost, or that you're not as needed anymore?
Yeah, what do you do when you don't know what to do?
Because I said to you, I was in Venice, I was the guy. I was one and a half of the guy, and now I'm middle management. I think it's okay to talk about this stuff. I think all the churches who don't talk about this stuff is it's just I don't know, if CEOs at other companies can talk about this stuff, we should be able to talk about this stuff. It's hard to find your place on a team.
Well, most of the teams are your team, so.
So if I feel this way, I can't imagine how Austin feels, or Brooke feels, or you feel. I even said to you, I was is it incredibly lonely being the guy?
Well, one of the things
you don't
that's
want to talk about
interesting.
any of that, do you?
No, when you use the phrase middle management, it's always used in such a derogatory term, and I'm people who are, quote, in middle management, who live their life with meaning and intention and come to bring their best work, they're probably happier than the person in, quote, upper management. And it's not where you are in the management system that determines your happiness or fulfillment or value. It really is all internal. And when you think your job is making you unhappy, it's not your job that's making you unhappy. You are unhappy and you have a job. And and you're blaming your job because it's a great canvas from which to throw all the blame of your unhappiness. And I could be terribly unhappy leading Mosaic, or I could be incredibly happy leading Mosaic. It's really up to me.
Right.
I just think that we have much more personal choice and much more personal power in the dynamic of our happiness and unhappiness. And so here's just a couple tips I always try to remember is never make a life-altering decision when you're in emotional pain.
Okay.
When you feel uncertain or in chaos or in crisis or in when you're in a bad moment, you'll only make bad decisions.
I always, when I go through a situation like this with someone I care about or dating situation, I always want to quit everything and run.
Every single time.
Every time.
And
But we have had the conversation of my role. My role needs to shift. But before, because you'd make me, if I want to make a big decision, you make me have it on good days and bad days.
That's right. Yeah, you can make hard decisions on good days. You can even make wrong decisions when you're having a good day.
Yeah.
But it's almost impossible to make a right decision when you're not in a good place.
Right.
And because
So what do you do? How do you set like a checks and balance system for like when you have a bad day and you have to make a big decision? What do you do?
Well, one thing is I remind myself how hard I worked to create what I'm in right now. And because when I want to throw it all away, I'm like, I worked 30 years to get to this, to build this. So I'm not going to throw it away on a bad day.
And I feel like I've put in 8.
You have. You put a lot of years in and worked really hard.
They're not 30.
Yeah.
I got to be a part of probably the most, I came like right when it was from going from the most successful it probably ever was to like, then I probably like heard it a lot. To then I think we got to a really strong place and then COVID happened and now we're in a rebuilding phase.
I think you're feeling what a lot of people are feeling because they're in the next transition. The transition into quarantine was really hard for people. The journey through quarantine was brutal for people. I think this transition is proving to be harder than the first one. And because the first one was the government taking everything away from you in terms of personal freedoms.
Like not being able to go out. Like all the restrictions happened.
Yeah, all the restrictions happened. And so you had an external force saying, you can't go to restaurants, you can't go to sporting events, you have to stay in your house, you have to stay locked down, you can't be around friends, you can't even be around family.
Right.
You can't go to funerals, you can't go to weddings. So we lost a lot of things. And that sense of loss is catastrophic, but it's predictable.
Yeah.
What's happening now is people are in transition. You can get a job, but do you really want that job? You were working from home, but now you don't want to go back into the office. In terms of even like church life, some people who are super relational extroverted are going, finally we get everybody back together.
Yeah.
And then there's also what people don't realize is, oh no, no more filtering all the crazy people who are going to be walking into Hollywood because there's a lot of crazy people who come here.
I mean, I sat down with you and I said, was it so bad the way things were?
Right. So now it's the crisis of uncertainty. Before it was loss with certainty. And now it's, quote, gain with uncertainty. And I think people are having a more traumatic time re-engaging into life. And it's a whole spectrum. There are still people who are super afraid of COVID and super afraid of getting sick. And so I see a few people here are still wearing masks even when they don't have to. Yeah. There are people who are terrified of not regaining what was lost for them. By the way, more people made money during the quarantine than lost money in terms of the business sector. It's kind of extraordinary. I think I saw something like 75% of Americans actually were doing better. Yeah. Which kind of caught me by surprise. It's
crazy.
Yeah. And so it's not that people are simply in a financial crisis. They're actually in a psychological crisis. Yeah. And a lot of people don't want to go back to work. They like the world that was created for them and aren't really ready to run back out. So I think a part of what you're going through is the transition.
You think I don't want to work though?
You are a workaholic.
That's the problem.
Yeah, no, but I think what's happened is that you rose up during the rule change because now we were a television and film studio. Yeah. And running and creating a television and film studio, working as a creative director in that world, it was just right in your sweet spot. Okay. Even with the gallery, with the filming of the messages, everything. Right. Going back into this dynamic of live community, live worship, that's less a spot that you find a great deal of energy and result from. Although you loved worship and you love being in the space. And
I love.
But the work of every single week doing live production can be such a grind.
It's 52 weeks. It's 52
People don't
weeks.
realize the amount of work it takes to do that every single week.
No, I think just in Venice, I spoke 30 times before I think 30 or 40 times in 2019, and then I think I had spoken 15 times before COVID happened. Like, you speak an incredible amount, but for me, that was a huge jump.
Yeah, and for most people, it takes between 20 to 30 hours of preparation, both in studying and in like psychological and spiritual preparation for a message. So if you don't realize, it just starts taking an immense amount of energy from your life.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. With that said, I think we're talking about good things.
Yeah, no. I think what really the point of this is if you're listening right now and you think I should be happier because the world is opening up, but I feel more stress, you're not alone. I think people are actually really struggling with mental health. I think people are really struggling with reacclimation to what used to be normal, and even knowing how to relate to people. And I think the perfect example is on the same street on Larchmont. We have Pete's and we have Go Get 'Em.
Oh my gosh, 2 coffee shops.
And not even talking about the quality of coffee.
Yeah,
in Pete's, you can walk in without a mask on and everybody's sitting inside and talking and eating food. There's people outside in tables sitting and eating and talking. You go get 'em, there's a sign that says even if you're vaccinated, you must wear a mask. And you can't go inside except to order, and then you get your food and drinks, you have to leave. Immediately. And I think that's the contrast to the world we live on the same street.
On the same street.
Yeah.
Also, can we talk about demographics of Pete's and Go Get 'Em?
Sure.
Go Get 'Em's probably like an under 40s spot.
Yeah, very
and
much.
Pete's is probably like a
over
30,
40.
Over 40.
Yeah.
Like the people sitting out front, they're in their 50s and 60s.
Yep.
It's like a hub. Like all of the old film guys in the neighborhood chill and hang out, Like huge actors are just chilling and hanging out every day of the week. They don't care. They don't wear masks. And you got Go Get 'Em, and it's like all these young kids.
They're like 25, 26, 22.
Who are terrified.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't understand because, I was probably more nervous for COVID for you than you were for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the case with a lot of people. Obviously, it was real. Obviously, people were really sick. So like, it's not that. It is now become a fear thing. Like, how do we manage fear? And we've talked about it so many times, but I do see it. Like I see people coming around back into society, and there is like a sadness. There is like a heaviness because, even with like the freedom of, whether it's Saturdays and Sundays or, not going to church or being around, there is something that's shifted in us. And now it feels like we're having to go back, and now we're sad. And I don't know why people are sad. I'm still figuring that out. But you see it on people's faces. You can feel it.
And people are responding in such different ways. I met this one couple. They met online during COVID.
Okay.
They went on one date, dated a couple of weeks, got engaged.
Oh, whoa.
A couple of months later, they got married.
Oh,
and now they're married, and they're really happy. And
interesting.
And so there's some
people.
Yes, he's pretty well known. I'm not going to.
Okay.
And I don't want to say his name.
Yeah. Okay.
And I just met another couple, same thing. Met a third couple, same thing. So I think a lot of people during COVID quarantine decided, if this is what the world's going to be like, I'm not going to do it alone. And I'm going to get married fast. And I saw some people really move fast toward getting married. And then there are other people who did the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And if this is what the world's like, I'm going to be more cautious and careful about relationships, and it's going to take me longer. And we need to recognize that this is not a normal moment, and that people have never been prepared for this. You were not trained by your parents, by your schools. I don't care how many degrees you have. You were not trained to handle a pandemic and come out of it. The psychological dynamics that are involved in this are new to everyone. And so you just have to recognize that there are some people who are more inherently resilient and have internal structures that help them overcome these things, and they become more obvious. And there are others who aren't as resilient, and the level of the pressure cooker of this moment has a greater impact on them. They would have never looked weak in a different situation, but in this situation, the cracks kind of become more clear.
Okay, so we're gonna one, I'm really grateful that you were able to you always were able to speak into my life, but like just taking the conversation we just had in the car in the last couple of weeks to then able to like break some of it down in a respectful, I think, healthy way of, being in a relationship, or how to be in a relationship, or how to not miss a relationship, to like also not, how to not miss out on rest, and how to not miss out on like being the best at work. And I think for a lot of young people and old people, all people, we're in just one of the craziest eras in history, because I think the definition of work is really like adjusting. Every time you look at social media for us, because I think we're in a pretty liberal, like open, young city, it's, fair wages and minimum wage. You can't pay rent, and I'm like, I agree with it. Like if you have minimum wage and you work full time, you probably can't live in LA.
Yeah.
Like we have so many projects that we do, and I still can't live in LA. So, there's I think there's a lot of truth in it, but I do think there's also this kind of thing. Like I was walking in Seattle this last couple of days, and I kid you not, almost every building, every corner, every street had a sign, now hiring. If you need work, call us. $1,000 signing bonus to be a cook, like at a pizza spot. Like if you'll work, we'll give you $1,000. Like I heard someone was telling me that they're paying chefs $50 and like not even chefs, like not chefs, like cooks, like guys in the kitchen, $50 an hour just to cook at restaurants because no one wants to work. Because it was so bad in Seattle. Like COVID was also really bad there, but also everything from the riots, the protests, it was so dangerous. People don't want to go back into the city.
Yeah.
So we are watching the world change right before our eyes. And so how do we adapt? How do we persevere, create resilience, and also create like this ability to go back into the next phase of life even better than the last one,
Yeah, it's so true. And even when you mentioned like minimum wage, I was doing this math in my head. If you minimally got paid $25 an hour and you worked 40 hours a week, you'd make $50,000 a year, 52, something there, which is a salary that would not allow you to live in LA or San Francisco or Seattle or New York or Chicago. And so
Miami.
Miami.
Dallas,
so what's interesting is that even if you made minimum wage an astronomical amount of money in comparison to where it is now, it's not really that much money to work as a cook in downtown Seattle.
Right.
And that's a challenge that the culture is going to have right now. Our economic challenge as a country is going to be that the prices are going up in cities, but the bottom scale income is not going up enough. Right. And but anyway, I think the bigger issues are what you were talking about, that people are trying to figure out how they want to face life right now, and who they want to become, and right now I think we have this like turtle mentality. We're just our heads in our shell, and we're just hoping the world will go away if we don't peek our head out and look around. And the future is coming. The world is coming. The world is opening up. You got to get out there, and it's better to risk and fail, and give it a shot than to live in fear and be paralyzed.
Okay. Thank you so much for this episode. Thank you for just speaking into everything. If you're listening, we just want to say thank you. Thank you to every single person who's watching this on YouTube, listening on Apple, listening on Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this podcast. We are so grateful for you. We just want to say a shout out and a thank you to every single person who supports this podcast on Anchor. In our link in our bio, there's 140 people that kind of support this podcast each and every month, and we are so, so grateful for you. If you're interested in doing it, click the link in the bio. No pressure at all. But here's a little bit of pressure. I want you to feel a little bit of pressure to go to Apple and rate and review this. It was my birthday last week. Give me a birthday gift. It costs you nothing. Go to Apple, rate us, give us 5 stars, write a little review of what you think of the podcast. Go to our YouTube channel, which is the link in the bio, and it says, subscribe to the new YouTube channel. We have moved. For the longest time, we were on Mosaics. Battle Ready turned 18 and got kicked out of the house. Now we are here. We have our own home. Kind of. So go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and we're going to start dropping a few little select things. So we'll see you there soon. All right. Thank you, guys.